Hello, welcome to Create Context Weekly Movie Minute. This episode is brought to you by CreateContext.com. A link will be in the description at Create Context. We talk about movies, video games, and all the cool things like that. This week, we're talking about Heretic. Heretic is the new A24 horror movie starring Hugh Grant, Sophie Thatcher, Chloe East, and even a little bit of Topher Grace is in there. Heretic is the latest subversive horror flick from A24, but unlike this year's earlier outing with Brandy, The Front Room, Heretic is actually a horror movie. This thriller from Scott Beck and Brian Woods was just about everything you'd expect from an A24 horror flick, and even a few things you may not. The greatest trick Heretic pulls is its long, slow-paced scenes propelled solely by dialogue. Hugh Grant is an absolute madman in Heretic, and the two women he meets slowly start to devise his sinister intentions. The entire film is this tight and contained story, and it is nothing short of a masterclass in exposition and chills. Heretic begins innocuous enough with two young Mormon women going door to door as part of their mission. They have doors closed in their face, they're ridiculed by these young influencers, and they contemplate the virtues of their religion. The opening dialogue in this film features Sophie Thatcher and Chloe East just sitting on a park bench talking to each other. They talk about condoms and dirty movies and how that relates to their faith. It's the perfect table setting to introduce us to these characters and let us know who we are about to spend 2 hours with. Sophie Thatcher plays Sister Barnes. She's a little bit older and maybe a little bit wiser than her naive counterpart, Chloe East, who plays Sister Paxton. We get the sense that Paxton has been raised in the church, never knowing anything outside of her small Mormon bubble. Barnes, on the other hand, is a bit more cynical, but also more steadfast in her belief. This is the result of a woman who chose this life, not one who was just born into it. Despite their hardships and ridicule, both sisters are determined to continue on their path of righteousness. When the sisters arrive at Mr. Reed's house, a swarmy-looking Hugh Grant who's asked for additional information about the church, it becomes immediately apparent to the audience that something is off about him. Reed asks these strange and pointed questions, and he points out inconsistencies in their doctrine and is very direct about taboo subjects in their church like death and control and polygamy. It becomes very clear early on that Mr. Reed knows a lot about the Mormon faith, more so than even these young women do. But their politeness and that Mormon willingness to serve keeps them at the house a lot longer than they should be. Reed does his best to soothe any fears, but it becomes clear the longer they stay that everything has been orchestrated by Reed. Nothing is a coincidence, and they are fully under his control. Politeness and our unwillingness to cause a scene is a frequent theme in these type of get me out of here horror movies. This year's Speak No Evil has the villain stating, "You let us," when asked by our heroes why they're being tortured. And Funny Games, the German film, is a satirical look at this very idea of politeness. How far does a stranger have to push you before you offend them? Heretic uses the same theme, but expands on it by offering a counter perspective. It's not just these young women's naivete, there is a greater control at work. Reed has orchestrated everything down to the T, from the random timers in the home to the lack of a clear escape route. He makes the women think it's their own fault, but in reality, they never had a choice. The second they entered his home, they entered his territory, and there is nothing they can do to escape. The second act begins with Grant sequestering the woman into a small, recreated church setting where he unloads his philosophy of faith on them. Reed makes these crude comparisons between religions and board games while the women just listen politely out of terror. It's here where the film starts to reveal its big ideas about religion, how each religion is more or less the same, all just iterating on one another. There's an illusion of choice, but in reality, there's always something or someone greater at work. If faith is just based on one man's interpretations of that word, then that man can inevitably control the word to his liking. Mr. Reed presents the women with a choice, but it's clear to one of them that the choice is moot. He gives them two doors, one that represents belief and one disbelief. In reality, it doesn't matter which door they choose. The outcome will be the same. They are already under his control, and neither their faith or lack thereof can save them. Heretic does an amazing job of building up tension leading up to the door choice. Hugh Grant plays a disturbed fanatic incredibly well here, and the women slowly realizing how dire their situation is becoming is just fantastic cinema. It's when they enter the door and the women begin to unravel Reed's plans that the movie starts to slip just a bit. The terrors of the unknown are always worse than the reality, and Heretic inevitably suffers from that. Where Heretic doesn't suffer, though, is its ability to keep everything grounded. The entire film takes place ostensibly in one location, Reed's house, with several different sets throughout. The set design of his living room, the church, and the basement that they end up in after choosing one of the doors all invoke this level of fear and discomfort that just steeps through the scene. This is a horror movie about faith, and an A24 one at that, and there is an expectation throughout this film that at any point it could just go off the rails, but Heretic never does that. It never delves into the supernatural, never posits anything that can't be explained, and it leaves enough breadcrumbs for the audience to pick up on the magic trick that Reed is trying to pull. Heretic is saying a lot about faith, doubt, and control. The film is littered with these themes, and they all come together spectacularly in the end. It's refreshing to see a movie start and end in a grounded place, more or less. There's some wacky antics that delve into the unbelievable a bit towards the end, but there's nothing here that's truly unexplainable. Longlegs is another blockbuster horror movie that came out this year, and it ends with such a strange, unsatisfying twist. At the end of the film, it's revealed that all of the mysteries we've been watching have no real explanation. They posit all of these strange happenings, strange happenstances, and want us as the audience to delve in and try and figure that mystery. But at the end of the film, it really just comes down to nothing more than it was the devil all along. Heretic wisely abandons the desire to pull any supernatural stunts and instead just fully realizes its themes. There's no supernatural, no divine intervention, only powerful men who desire control. Everything is orchestrated to their plan, and they use faith as a catalyst for their control, sometimes pulling off unseen magic tricks to help reiterate their points. Heretic is a fantastic film and may be the best horror flick released this year. Thank you so much for watching or listening to the Weekly Movie Minute. We are brought to you again by Create Context. We are Create Context Podcast. Head over to createcontext.com for more film reviews and analysis. A link will be in the description.